Hello, world. You're listening to Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, where we're always creeping it real. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner.
Let's give a warm welcome to today's guest, paranormal investigator Richie Moschella of the New Jersey Paranormal Project. Welcome, Richie.
Thank you for having me, Eleanor.
So glad you could join me today. Why don't we start off with you explaining to the listening audience today how we met?
I was looking up a location. I was trying to get as much information that I could on Waterloo Village, and I did a search on Amazon, and I found your first book with the subject matter of Waterloo Village. And I got the author name, I wrote down Eleanor Wagner, and I got in touch with you, and we had a great conversation. We hit it off, and I said, my team is going there to investigate. Why not, have you and your team, the Lady Ghostbusters, come out, and it was a great investigation.
Yeah, it was a great collaboration.
All the different team efforts and the abilities of the team members. It was really cool.
It was, absolutely. It was a pleasure meeting you that day the first time. You have a very interesting background, if I may say so myself. You're a mailroom supervisor at Hackensack Hospital by day and a paranormal investigator by night. You have a love of reading and are a history buff. You've had a professional fishing career where you've lectured at seminars all over the Northeast, even having hosted a real deal fishing show. What kind of fishing was it and what location?
Well, with the Real Deal Fishing Show, I started that probably in 1997. And the main thing with that was just to teach people and to break down fishing. And I'm self-taught. I didn't have the dad who, took his son fishing. I grew up in Bergen County and Lodi. I mean, the closest water we had was the Passaic River, and you didn't want to fish too close to that. So I had neighbors and mentors that stepped in for me and took me fishing and shared their passion and their knowledge. So as I got older, I kind of wanted to do that. But then YouTube was starting to become a popular thing. So I said, why not kind of show people as I went along and what I was learning? So that's what the Real Deal was about. It was real fishing, and we didn't have days out on the water. We had one day, either Saturday or Sunday, and it was the fishing that happened that day and just breaking down fish patterns and how fish feed. I mean, it's a lot of science. It's not just throwing a line in the water. It's following the forage and what seasonal changes bring. So I still do it.
Did you just come back from a fishing expedition in Cape Cod or something?
Cape Cod. Well, I snuck out on the dock a few times when my wife and kids were sleeping. And I'm still doing it. It's just, I'm not doing it at that level anymore. It's kind of time to go in a different direction and follow our other passions.
That happens with us all. I raised my kids. Absolutely. Now they're 22 and 25, going on 26. Yeah. And I'm empty nesting. So I'm totally getting an entirely new career at 56. Who would have thought, right?
I mean, we're, humans. You don't have to just stick with one thing and just be that one. There's so many different passions that we have. We get one life at it that we know about.
Right.
So why not enjoy it?
Exactly. Do I understand that you used to write for fishing magazines too from like 2009 to 2019?
Yeah, that became a huge passion of mine and kind of helped me learn how to write and has now helped me with the book projects that I'm doing. But I wrote for Bassin Magazine, Bassmaster, Kayak Angler. There's like 5 or 6 of them that I contributed monthly. And, I would go to Barnes & Noble and there's my article and get all geeky.
How exciting.
But I still write from time to time because there's still things to send into magazines. So I'm still writing, but again, not at the level that I used to for the fishing magazines.
So how did you go from the fishing to the paranormal?
See, in 2007, I went up to the Ringwood Manor. And I remember I was walking the grounds and you could just feel a place's presence. And I was always into the paranormal. I grew up in the 80s. I was the 80s kid at the library taking out books on UFOs, paranormal, Bigfoot, reading Hans Holzer books and making photocopies. And I've always loved the paranormal. So I grew up reading it, watching TV, In Search Of, I'm sure, with
Leonard
Nimoy and Unsolved Mysteries. So So I always had that passion. But in 2007, I went to the manor and I go, you know what? How cool would it be if there was a YouTube show that kind of focused on New Jersey and our historical places and its paranormal history? I wonder if we could blend history and the paranormal. So it was something that I tried then, and the formula just wasn't really right yet, and I couldn't find really good people to work with. So it kind of got put up on the shelf that we all have, that shelf when we're too busy, and we put those mental things up there and say, we'll return one day.
That was when NJPP, New Jersey Paranormal Project, was established. So officially it was established in 2007, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you'll see that YouTube video, and you'll see the New Jersey Paranormal Project in 2007 at the Ringwood Manor. I was the only one who was doing the project. But,
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. And I'm wearing that Indiana Jones cap, and it got put up on that shelf. And I went forward with a fishing career for about 12 years. And I just felt, after I had kids and I couldn't be out on the lake for 9-10 hours, why don't I take that other box down, put the fishing box up for now? And, it's the paranormal. And it's been an interest of mine since I was a child, and everything came together. It was almost like the universe, like
it was meant to be at that time. It was the right place, the right time. I can relate, though. I'm the same with you. I had the same interests when I was younger, too. And I think it just needed the right place, the right time. So today you have a team of like-minded individuals. How many team members make up your team?
Well, it's only a core group of 5 of us. We have Marcy and Hayden, Kim and Kyle, and myself. And that's our core group. And I said, I want to keep it like that. What I like is having a revolving door for everyone else. And this revolving door allows everybody to work with us and for us to work with them. And having that dynamic in like the group and being able to tap people who have other abilities to come in, whether it's a spirit artist or ITC professional who is phenomenal with EVPs like Ron and Lourdes that you'll see us work with a lot. Different people bring different elements to our group. But again, we keep it at our core, and we like to work with other groups. And like I say, having that revolving door and that sharing of knowledge is just amazing, because we grow as investigators working with people like yourself and the Lady Ghostbusters, or we have a chance to work with another group. It's just a learning process, and it elevates the investigation.
Absolutely. Marcy and Hayden, that's a mother and son team.
Yeah.
And now how did you meet them?
Well, Marcy and Hayden were doing a Picatinny paranormal event probably about a year and a half ago that I couldn't attend. And I remember I wrote down her name, Marcy Keck, Picatinny Paranormal. I found her on Facebook and I said, listen, I couldn't attend your presentation on Picatinny, but would you be able to come with my team, Kim and Kyle, to the Hibernia Cemetery that the Lady Ghostbusters and yourself investigated with us? So kind of everybody came together at Jockey Hollow in Morristown, and it just clicked. Marcy is very good, especially with the divination tools like dowsing and pendulum. She has that clear hearing, so she actually hears spirit, which is a phenomenal bonus to have when you're investigating. And so she specializes in that. Kim, I'm sure our viewers and people watching know Kim, the ghost history medium. She's a fantastic medium. She helps just layer our investigations with information. Kyle is great with video and pictures, and Hayden is a techie, so he's all about the gadgets.
And Kimberly and Kyle, they're a husband and wife team. And then how did you meet them? Obviously, they were there before Marcy. I didn't realize that, but they were with you for a while longer, right?
So again, I'm combing YouTube. Yes, they were a few months before Marcy and Hayden. But again, I'm combing YouTube and I'm looking at different paranormal shows, and I see the ghost history medium at Rockaway Cemetery, Hibernia. And I'm like, wow, this is right down the road from my house. This is a cemetery that I want to investigate. So I reached out to them. I said, listen, would you like to meet up there one day and walk up to the cemetery and see how things go? If we get anything? And they responded, yes. And we met there, and I told them about my plans for bringing back the New Jersey Paranormal Project and having a select group of core people. And it all just steamrolled from there. Talk about the universe and how things are just meant to happen in a certain way. And we've been investigating ever since. And it's a great dynamic that we all have. So
it worked out perfectly. It really did. And Kimberly is extremely talented. Just being with her and seeing her at work is just amazing.
That would actually be a great interview too, to have the ghost history medium on, because she has so much information that she goes into and she pulls out of these places.
Now, you wrote a book about your investigations not too long ago called My New Jersey Paranormal Project. When was that released?
My New Jersey Paranormal Project was released January 2021. It came out
in the midst of COVID.
Yeah, I wrote a book.
I did too. We had time. We may have not been as affected as others were. I was kind of like sequestered at home, and I was like, this is my thing,
What started happening was a lot of people are, asking, well, what got you started? So I remember one day I'm sitting down in my home office and I'm like, well, what got me started? So all of a sudden I have about 10 pages and then 20 pages. And then I'm like, wait, this is like 40 pages now that I have. And then before you know it, I'm like, well, and then it was like, how do you go about this? And having 2 kids, my wife, I don't have this back end where I could throw it into a big publishing thing. So Amazon, and it explains how my beginnings started. It tells my family's story with the paranormal because it goes on way before me. And my grandmother having an ability, she was very clairvoyant. My father's side of the family was very clairvoyant, having seances and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then it goes into my experiences and now my experiences investigating with the New Jersey Paranormal Project. So there's a lot of good information in there and also revealing of cases. So you can get that on Amazon.
I hear that a lot, that family history has a lot to do with present day people having ability is because maybe their grandmother, it goes through the generations somehow. Yeah. What was your favorite investigation?
My favorite investigation for myself would probably be the Butler Museum. We were allowed to come in. It's an old train station that's now a museum in the middle of Butler, New Jersey. And I remember this was the first place that I went into where I actually walked to the old ticket window that's still in the building. And I saw an image of a little boy from the 1920s in my mind's eye having like a little cap on his head. And I remember I felt compelled. I'm like, I have to jot this down. It was an image that stayed with me. So I jot that down. And, fast forward a year later, we had a spirit artist come to the same building. We have an investigation at the same place. My book wasn't out a week. She goes into where that ticket window was and drew the same exact little boy that I saw there a year earlier.
Wow.
So, and just having that feeling like, wow, I actually received a message from spirit, made the hair stand up on my arms. And with Dawn's encouragement and stuff, that was actually the point where I said, you know what, I need to start fine-tuning myself and taking more courses on how to fine-tune your clairvoyance. And it's really been working. So
I love when things come full circle like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Now, what was your most frightening investigation?
Well, it was a dark and stormy night in Fieldsboro, New Jersey at Whitehill Mansion. We went there in the middle of winter. The winds were howling. It was freezing. And Whitehill Mansion dates back to the early 1700s. And there's paranormal buffs out there. Paranormal Lockdown was filmed there with Trina and Nick Roth. Very interesting building. So many different lives. It was a speakeasy. It was a bordello, a murder. So it was just walking up into that attic that's pitch dark where you got to walk into rooms because the doors are crooked and just being immersed in the darkness as that wind is whipping and you start hearing noises coming out of doors that almost sound like whispering. That definitely made the hair stand up on your arms. And when your REM pod starts going off and there's nobody around it, that's probably at the top of my list right now.
What are you working on now?
I have 2 books at my editor. Again, you start with 1 page and then you're...
you know it.
140. Yeah. Uh-huh. I mean, you're probably going through the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like once you do 1, it's like,
they all just keep coming out. When are you going to stop? I'm going, I'm not gonna. Why should I?
And the reaction is good. I mean, people that have read it are like, this is awesome. Do you have another one out? So Spirit Voices is at the editor, and then Spirits in History that just focus on the historical investigations. And I'm currently working on another one now that's just going to be broken down up into case files.
Oh my goodness. You're a busy bee.
Spirit Voices that's going to really deal with the communication. So we're interviewing ITC professionals and mediums and spirit artists on how spirit gets their message across to us. Mm-hmm. Spirits in History would just delve into the historical connection that spirit has with history, and then some case files. And I was just up in the Cape and I was able to go to the Barnstable house where Hans Holzer spent so much of his time with Sybil Leek doing their investigations and walking into an old jail that dates back to the early 1600s. So I got so much story from just 4 nights up there.
That's exciting. Now, you mentioned earlier about the Lady Ghostbusters collaborating with the New Jersey Paranormal Project. Our first one together together. The first time we met was at that historic landmark of Waterloo Village in Stanhope, New Jersey. Now, I had already written about it in my book, so I was going back to it a second time when we were there with you. I don't know, had you ever been there prior to that? I don't remember if it was the first time that you were there.
It was my first time. I did a lot of research online about Waterloo and its background, and that's how I found your book on it. And that's a huge thing, too. I like to know as much as I can about a place and peel back all those layers. And it's a very interesting place, right? Right, Eleanor?
Oh, my goodness. For the listening audience, you step back in time when you go there. Everything is empty. I want to say they're abandoned houses, but they're not abandoned because it's part of the state park, I think, now, if I remember correctly.
Heirs for them.
And they are being maintained and refurbished to bring them back to their natural grandeur slowly, because the funds aren't necessarily there to do it all at once. And they do hold festivals and things there at other times, but it's a park per se, and anyone can go there and walk the grounds. The homes are no longer openly accessible to the public. Unfortunately, at one time they were, because when I had written my book, I had interviewed people who had gone in them when there was the time that you were able to.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they occasionally open them now to the public for events that I've not heard of. I would love it if they did. But even still, going there in this empty town, because that's literally what it is. I mean, it still has the grist mill and a bunch of little shops that once were, so to speak, and then the houses where people lived, whether they were small little abodes or huge, would you call it a manor house or a mansion? They were big for their time, for sure.
I mean, they were, for how much, the cost of living was, they were pretty nice houses.
Victorian style homes, and they're just unbelievably beautiful. And just stepping on a porch and looking in the window, you were getting stuff. And you were getting stuff outside on the porch. You were getting stuff on the land in photographs that we took. It was incredibly amazing. So imagine, as two collaborative teams that came together, what we were getting meditatively or sensitive wise. It was really a wonderful experience.
Even picking up on the little girl too at that one building that I remember. I had my K2 meter, and the mediums that we had with us was like, she's like playing hide and seek with you. And I could almost feel that as I was walking around the grounds, and the K2 would spike, K2 would go down, and then they'll be like, oh, she's over by the window. And I would go there and the K2 would spike. And then she went into the house, which was really interesting. And you got to think, probably they're observing the people. They're going back to a place that they had such an attachment to in life, that they had memory there. So that's holding that attachment. But that's one thing about historical places that I love, is they're full of spirit. And I believe if we quiet our minds and we go there as investigators with the proper equipment, the right channels, the sensitives, that you could peel back these layers and get spirit story from spirit itself if we only listen.
As I mentioned, it's a park open to the public. And when I was interviewing for the book, a woman that I had interviewed told me that she regularly would walk with her dog in this area, and her dog would actively react to something that appeared as if it were patting him on the head and scratching him under the neck. And she said it was just amazing to watch how he behaved, as if had his head up, looking at somebody and enjoying whatever they were doing to him. And then when it was done, looking at her and turning and getting ready to leave. And somebody else that I had interviewed said she was walking in there with her child in a carriage, to do the walk. And she saw this young child in the middle of the winter sitting out in front of this Victorian house, no coat on, nothing, in colonial garb, which she thought was strange, obviously. What was this child doing there? So they're not afraid to come out, and they're not afraid to interact.
I know animals are very sensitive to the paranormal. People that I've interviewed, dogs staring at a doorway and just going insane, or a cat almost looking like it's rubbing something, but nothing's standing there and it just keeps going back and forth. We all know that animals are sensitive. I also believe that children are sensitive. I know a lot of children that have gone to historical homes and touched their mom or dad and said, hey, mommy, the little boy over there wants me to play with him. And there's no little boy.
Right. Can I go play, mommy? With who?
Yeah.
Who do you want to go play with?
Yeah. And then, we don't know for that spirit that it's wintertime and they're there in a short sleeve shirt, how it works on the other side, or if it's just a residual image that's playing, which we're just observing almost like a movie that's playing out, or if then you get that intelligent response, that communication, or you feel grabbed, and that elevates it to an actual intelligent haunt. haunting. You know, sometimes I feel a lot of these historical places, just that energy is trapped in that land.
Residual. Yeah. A lot of it is residual. The
residual playback.
Repetitive, whatever was going on, the meetings, the sawmill.
Like the lady walks out of this door and walks to that window.
Yes.
That is residual playing. But if she turns to you and says something, now that's not residual anymore, and that's intelligent.
What about the elderly woman that lived in one of the Victorian houses there? She talked about her garden.
Yeah.
And she didn't like the kids running through her yard, if you remember that. And they must have been kids that were running through the yard to go to the schoolhouse that used to be at the back end, which I believe burnt down at some point or another. But we were actually finding out what it is that she was talking about as we were going through the whole area. It was amazing.
It was a great investigation. I would love to get back there and just see the same places if anything has changed. Because I also know with COVID right now that a lot of investigators are saying in some places the activity has actually diminished, as in some places it has heightened it. So it's almost like in a sense where ghosts maybe haven't seen people in a year, might even be wondering what's going on.
Where are they?
Yeah. So, and some people are saying that these sightings in some of these places have diminished, as other people are saying it got crazy good. So be interested to see how everything affected Waterloo.
Well, I remember when we went to Hibernia, we had gone to the cemetery there and the Batcave. Now, what was the name of the cemetery again in Hibernia?
It's Hibernia Cemetery. Another name of it is St. Patrick's.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of, because I remember the big sign at the entrance of the cemetery. Yeah. And that was very interesting, especially in between the Batcave and walking to the cemetery, just the land over there and how much activity was going on with who resided there at some point in time.
Even with your ladies, when I did that thing with the whiskey bottle that I brought and I poured it out, and we had the Phasma box going, you actually hear on the Phasma box, drink? No. They were minors, so they indulged in spirits at night. It was a rough place.
Yeah. There was some sort of a foundation there, I remember, and we were getting an understanding that there was like a big oven and a cookery. It must have been a pretty lively place going on while they were working property.
Well, it was big for mining. I know that whole Rockaway Township area, there are mines littered everywhere. And those foundations, you got to think men work their lives going into those mines and working in these buildings, that the foundations are still there. The mine is still there. Now it's a back cave that you would almost think in death, there must be an attachment to this. You know, not negatively, but it's a place that they live. And I feel like everywhere, you know, people say, where can I find spirits? I think they're everywhere.
They are.
It's just being able to tune into them, getting on that frequency and bringing our frequency to theirs. That's what makes some people very clairvoyant, very clairaudient, is just being able to tune yourself. And it's like how somebody practices to play the piano or learn an instrument. That's how this all works, is it takes a lot of practice, and certain people are very good at it. So if you just quiet your mind and have the right tools, like I said, you investigate with the right people, spirit does make itself, known.
There's a huge misconception amongst people that a place has to be old for it to be haunted, and that's not true at all. And everybody that goes along on that investigation, their energy alone creates that palpable connection. And each person comes with their own gifts to add to that mix, and it's like a puzzle. Everybody puts their piece in, and it comes together somehow. You end up getting this kind of rapport with one another, and you feed off of each other's energy and gifts to get to the answers. That's just the way it works.
And people ask, and I'm sure you probably been asked, why do you do this? Why do you go into a room and talk to the darkness for hours on end? Most of the time, we don't get answers.
Right.
It's a bunch of crazy people in, the dark. But we do it to prove the continuity of life. We're not in it. You're not making trillions of dollars. And we're doing this just to have that documentation from the other side that this isn't it. This isn't it. Our bodies might go and turn to dust, but our soul is more than just our bodies.
And I tell them that I enjoy it. You might enjoy going to a soccer game, or you might enjoy going to the theater. I enjoy going on a paranormal investigation. I enjoy unearthing a truth or a story, or helping a spirit to get acknowledged in the manner that they want to, or sometimes even helping a spirit get to the light, because oftentimes they lose that light. From what I've learned is that the light appears to a deceased individual for a period of time, and then it just goes away. And if they don't walk into it, they've missed the light. You have to help them find it again. And some of them don't know they're dead, and you got to tell them. So we always give them a choice. Do you want to go or do you want to stay? And if they want to go, we want to help them on their way. And I like it. I like helping ghosts. I like helping helping people, but I like helping ghosts better.
That's the thing. You could always ask them, what do you need? Do you need anything? And see, sometimes it's the recognition. Maybe this unsung hero in history might not be recognized at a museum or at the historical home that this person lived. And they just might want their name on the wall, or, hey, there's a box of photos in the attic, and boom, they find this person's photo. They put it out. The paranormal activity vanishes.
Right.
So sometimes they just want to be known. They want a message to get across, and then that's it.
Right. Or to just be acknowledged. If you've come into their home, they were there first, and they see you're in their home and you're doing all this stuff, and it confuses them. They want to be acknowledged and told what's going on. And oftentimes you can get the homeowner and the spirit on the same page. Yeah. The spirit wants to be acknowledged and spoken to about what's going on. And if the homeowner is ready and willing to do it, they can live in harmony.
That's great work that you can do, because most of the time when you walk into someone's home to do an investigation, they're terrified.
Oh, yeah. I've been finding out a lot recently too, Richie, when we've been doing investigations in the homes of people. We've been finding a lot of it being just deceased loved ones coming to send a message of one thing or another. Yeah. And we've been in situations where there were ghosts and deceased loved ones. But there's no greater joy than a homeowner getting a message from a deceased loved one. Yeah. And I can't tell you in the last 6 months how many times us women just sat there crying with the homeowners, because it was just so poignant for them to get that message from.
Well, it helps with the healing too. When you can contact somebody that played a part in your life and, that you're grieving for, comes forward with a message to just let you know that they're okay. Their earthly issue is not a problem to them anymore. And
they're here all the time. They're checking in on you, watching over you.
I always tell people it's almost like a phone call.
Yes.
I still, every morning when I'm driving to work, I say, hey, Grandma, hey, Grandpa. I, talk to them, because I feel that once we think of them, we have that conversation with them. It's like a phone call. It's a spirit phone call that they hear what you're saying. And I've sat through enough of psychic and mediumship readings where they have actually came through and acknowledged me talking to them. So I can tell you certainly that they hear what we say. And if we miss them, it's not crazy to have that conversation with the ones that have gone and are on the other side. So.
Oh, I agree 100%. We went on a team investigation together with you guys to Early American Tavern, which is formerly known as the Sussex Inn in Sussex, New Jersey. I really wish they would have kept it at the Sussex Inn, because it's been the Sussex Inn forever. But they
take Sussex out of it,
So they call it the Early American Tavern now. But that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
For the listening audience, we went in, we had dinner there, and then they gave us the opportunity to investigate the restaurant and the second and third floors, which are now occupied by boarders that are there in single room situations. And the energy on the second and third floors, if you remember, was extremely heavy and negative. And for the listening audience benefit, to tell you, there was a lot of deaths by suicide, overdose. The element of people over the years in there was not so good because of the drugs involved. And so that energy just permeates the air in the second and third floors.
Very foreboding, and very oppressive. We actually felt it as we went higher than the second floor. I even said to the team, I'm like, I think we're going to stick a little lower. And we stayed around the pool table. We got a lot of stuff there with Civil War. That's where on the Phasma box, you'll actually hear somebody mention wartime when I question, what song is this? And we got a lot of Civil War action there. We captured a horse actually,
whinnying,
like neighing outside one of the windows on stuff. And then we got that shadow figure that was kind of crazy behind the door as our team was investigating the room on the second floor. I forget the number of it, but yeah, that room on the second floor was very heavy too. And we got that shadow figure. So
the horse whinnying, just so the audience knows, the restaurant portion of it, one point in time, the half end of it in the back was where the stables were. So they were on the same level as the restaurant. So it wasn't surprising that we were picking up horses in there either. Now, you went back there a second time, didn't you? Not too long ago?
A second investigation. I brought the ITC friends of mine, Ron and Lourdes, there, where we just camped out on the second floor in their dining room. And we had just the ITC devices. And it wasn't so fruitful as the first time that we were there. Also, it was kind of tough with the bar, just with the music and the ITC.
And isn't the kitchen right there too, isn't it?
Right there.
I think it would be really hard to actually get something going on because there's somebody in that building all the time, the residents that are living there. I mean, you might be able to get something if the restaurant portion of it is closed and everybody's not there, but it's kind of hard to get it empty.
So it was really tough. I mean, we walked away. We did hear voices through the radios and stuff, but nothing that we can validate. And that's another thing. If we can't validate that it's spirit that's coming through and it's just a noise, we're not putting that evidence forward and saying, like, listen to this.
I agree. I'm the same way.
That's credible.
You want definitive proof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you recall the Sussex Art Factory and Get Used investigation?
Yeah, that building had a lot of electric stuff happening in it.
Which one are you talking about?
The Sussex Art Factory?
The Art Factory, yeah. The Sussex Art Factory is no longer there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the landlord wasn't following town protocol for rules and regulations, and so they shut him down. He's actually got a wonderful location, though, in an old barn now in Vernon, so he's doing really good, the gentleman who used to rent it. But the Sussex Art Factory building is right next to this Get Used spot, which formerly was a diner for many years. I want to say, I think it was like 40 or 45 years it was a diner. And back in the day, there was this crazy artist guy who lived in between them in a building and frequented that area. So he's just all over the place.
I just remember when we walked into where the art factory was, just a lot of power cords and stuff. And when investigators see that, like yourself and stuff, then it eliminates your K2s,
right?
Because the magnetic field is polluted. But what we did was then we went over to this diner and we went down into the basement. And I think we had such great interaction down there with spirit, because I even brought down the REM pod that was actually picking up fluctuations, not only in environmental, but also in motion. When we asked it to step forward, the REM pod went totally crazy on us. And when we asked it to step away, the REM pod shut off. And that's having that intelligent back and forth with a spirit that really validates that they're there. They're hearing our questions and they're doing what we're asking.
You have to use, in a situation with the electrical thing going on, tools that you wouldn't normally necessarily use, or you would use them in addition to all the equipment that you have, but you have to kind of skim back on what you're using. So we were like with the pendulum, and we did the dowsing rods, and we did the old traditional flashlight thing with the battery, which was amazing because it was shutting on and off at our instruction, which was really cool when we were in the room in the Sussex Art Factory. But when we were in the Get Used building, we had the medium find half of a man in the kitchen. So she could only see the top portion of him. And she was like, I don't get it. And then the owner of the restaurant said, well, the reason for that is because at one point in time, the floor level was lower. It had since been raised. So the ghost doesn't know that. The ghost is just going to be there at the same level that they were when they lived there. So she goes, well, that makes sense that I got a half of a guy.
That's just amazing that you can pick up on something like that.
Yeah, it was great. And you did video that night too. You took video. You always take video. Yeah.
I log on the YouTube channel, whether you type in my name, Richie Moschella, or the Jersey Paranormal Project, you can look at all the YouTube videos, and there's probably about 50 or 60 of them up there. So
I love your videos. They're amazing. You were coaching me a bit with my own recently. Yours is so well done. Like me, you add that whole historical thing, which I like. When you're creating them, this is something I do with my books, and it just brings the story to life. You do one for every investigation, you said. What made you start doing them? That was back in the day when you were telling me in 2007, you just thought it would be nice to...
Well, I felt that if we put content out there, that we documented what we were doing, it helps tell the story of these locations. And it also shows our intention to spirit that we are here to document your story. And if you want to share with us your story, we are here. We have devices that you can use to communicate with us. And if you choose not to communicate with us, that is totally fine. And if we walk away with nothing, we walk away with nothing. I don't feel like I go into places and we strong arm spirits and it's like, you need to say something to us. Or, that's not the way to approach it. Don't yell at spirit. Don't walk in with a negative attitude or expect something to be crazy good. Most of the time, you know it yourself, you get maybe one or two major things that happen at an investigation. Sometimes not, but all this is rolled into our shows. And some investigations we don't put because it's a person's private home or a private office, or, I'm working with a case now that's in a funeral home. and it's a well-known funeral home. We can't say it, but we are there. And that's how our team approaches this too, is we're here to, if you're having an issue, we'll come in with our gear, we'll listen to you, we'll document what's happening, we'll develop a baseline of what happens. And then when those paranormal spikes happen, and, we'll try to go in to capture this. So yes, the show in a way shows what we do, our approach, our style, and it just puts it out there for people to see how we investigate. I think that's the right way to do it.
And Spirit Voices, that's a show. Is it going to be a book too?
Spirit Voices, yeah. I was doing an interview format in interviewing people that are intuitive mediums, and I thought it's a great name. Let's make that be the second book. And in Spirit Voices, that'll be coming out hopefully in the next few weeks, definitely by the fall, is going to be just totally spirit communication. I'm talking with ITC guys like Ron and Lourdes, dealing with spirit artists. My friend Dawn tells her story on how she found out she had this ability and how she developed it. I talk about how I communicate with spirit. There's cases in this book on how spirit beautifully communicated a message across the veil. So I think if you're really interested in learning about the communication process on how spirit communicates, this is the book that you definitely want to read. And I look forward to it coming out. It took a while to get it going, but it'll be out shortly.
Good. So exciting. Can you tell me what the Warrens Seekers of the Supernatural Paragon is all about?
Well, everybody knows Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah.
You've seen The Conjuring, you've seen Annabelle, the new movie The Devil Made Me Do It. The Conjuring, Ed and Lorraine Warren's name in the paranormal field, they're legends. And Tony Sparrow and the New England Psychical Research, they're putting together a beautiful expo. And this is going to be in Connecticut in October. I got the date here. October 30th, it's going to be a Saturday, and also on a Sunday, October 31st for Halloween. Why not go to Connecticut and actually be able to walk into the Warrens Occult Museum and get your picture with the real Annabelle? They're going to have all artifacts that Ed and Lorraine Warren had in their occult museum that you can actually walk through and see, get close to, but not too close. We're going to have a there. Only Saturday, though. We're only going to do the event on the 30th. And
what exactly are you guys going to do at your table, your station?
I'm going to have my books available. So if you want books signed, I'll have books for purchase. And we're also going to be able to engage the attendees and have some of our tools and explain how these tools work and just hand out information, share stories, try to collect stories from people. That's the one thing in this field that I find is everybody has a story to tell and they want to tell it, getting something off their chest, or even somebody saying, I live right up the road, I think something's going on. If we can come in and help that person, that would be phenomenal. And we don't charge, that's a thing. There's no fee to have the New Jersey Paranormal Project or myself involved with you. This is all done. This is at no cost. So
that's really the same way we are too. I mean, if you have these gifts and you want to help people, why are you charging them? But I'm totally the same way. That's how I feel about it. For those of you out there that know about the Annabelle doll, I know the movie depicts her as this grotesque doll that nobody would want to own, when in reality, the real Annabelle is simply a Raggedy Ann doll, which is creepier if you ask me, because you look at this doll and she looks as innocent as all hell, and she is hell.
They have her locked in a wooden box with a crucifix, and the stain that's on the wooden box was actually stain that they mixed holy water in. So the stain has holy water mixed in it. So they really tried their best to contain the energy.
Oh my goodness.
In that doll.
That is creepy.
So we're really looking forward to it. This is the first year that they're doing this, and I'm hoping with COVID and everything that everything happens, because things are getting crazy right now. But we're very excited to go. We're very excited to engage all the attendees. Saturday is sold out, so you can't even buy a ticket now.
Oh, wow.
Sunday, they still have tickets available. So if you're planning to go, get your tickets immediately for Sunday, and definitely get an extra ticket for the Warren Occult Museum that will be there. And and to be able to see these artifacts close up.
And this is in Connecticut. Where in Connecticut?
Connecticut. It is in Waterbury, downtown Waterbury, Connecticut, at the Courtyard Marriott Hotel.
And you guys are there on Saturday.
On Saturday, the event's from 10 to 5. So if you're in the area, New Jersey ain't too far, so come on down and see us.
That's right. Just this morning, you reached out to me with a peculiar message.
Yeah.
You mentioned how every time you and I chat, a man comes through to you with a message. You even sent me drawings of what he looks like and the message that he sent to you. When I saw the picture, I immediately suspected who it might be. And then the other facts that you shared with me, physical, you mentioned his work ethic, that he worked with his hands. You even gave me a name which coincided with who I thought he was. You mentioned water and a ship, which also made sense since my relative came here to live from Europe. And then you gave me that message of love and pride. I think I might have a definitive idea of who it is. And I took some steps to try and figure it out by giving my cousin a call. And I'm amazed that you can do this. First of all, you told me you've been attending a spiritual church to learn how to hone in on your clairvoyant tendencies, as well as spirit art, to be able to draw what you can see in a clearer way for the receiver of the message. Can you elaborate on all of this for me a little bit? Like, for example, define clairvoyancy and tell me exactly what spirit art is.
Well, clairvoyant is French and it means clear seeing. So I am seeing with my mind's eye. I don't see anything standing in front of me. I'll get visions when I walk into a room or when I meet somebody, or even having a conversation with somebody. Images start flooding my mind. And sometimes it's like watching like a movie and sepia tone just play out in your mind. And sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, if spirit has a strong enough message that they want to get across, I'll get symbols. So once I've started working with Dawn, who's a spirit artist, she actually was able to coach me a little bit and help me and answer a lot of questions that I had and turn me on to some very good books on spirit art and being clairvoyant and just the spiritualist belief on the continuity of life. So I started to attend online now because that's the only way to do classes where we can actually sit in the power. Where you sit in the power, you try to raise your vibration enough where you can, remember I said it's like a frequency, kind of get close to the spirit frequency. You're now able to receive message from spirit. So that's what happens. I will see with my mind's eye, and most of the time I am not an artist by any shape or form. I try my best to capture the likeness. And that's, I think, anybody who's doing spirit art, if you can convey a likeness, you're doing it. You can't convey a stick figure, but if you can capture just something about that person, whether it's their hairstyle, if they wore glasses, or a shape of a nose, and then the medium's toolbox and what people use as symbols and signs. So if I see somebody with rough hands, I will write around the drawing, person had rough hands. I see a toolbox. Now I see a vision of water. I'll write water. So all this helps you convey message to the sitter, whether they're how we're talking over a Zoom, or if you're sitting in front of me, or if we're having a phone call together. This helps me send that message to you. And how I perceive these symbols might be different how you perceive these symbols, but it might still convey the same message. So for the last 3 times that we chatted, this man in this white shirt, the rough hands, kind of strong, silent type was coming, and I would just see him and see him again. And, the 3rd time that we had the conversation, I'm like, okay, listen, okay, I'm going to let her know if you're anybody for her, here it is.
Well, I'm really glad that you did. I would have expected it to be my dad or my father-in-law. Certainly didn't expect John, but I've told you this before, I am not one that believes in coincidences. Yeah. And I feel like everything is happening for a reason. So when you sent that to me and I saw the face and everything that you had described, I put in a call to my cousin Marianne and told her what it was that I was calling her about, because she knows I've been dealing with the paranormal now for several years, and she's read my books, so she knows my own background personally.
Right.
So I didn't think it would come too much of a surprise to her that I was calling her with a possible message that belonged to her. So I said, can you answer some questions to me about your dad? And everything that you said was right in sync with him. And so I'm 99% confident that he was the one that was trying to give the message. And I say that because she said they've been going through a rough time. Obviously, we all have with COVID, but she's had other things that are going on. And she said it was something that she really needed to hear right now. Oh. She got all emotional. So I said, you know what? I'm sure that it was him. I'm sure that it was him.
John was very persistent.
And you want to know something? You had said John and you had said Johann.
Yeah.
And he's from Austria. So that's Johann. He was my father's brother.
Oh, wow.
But everything that you said, down to the white shirt, working with his hands, the receding hairline, I'm trying to think of the water, the toolbox.
Was he a strong,
Yes, he was he was a tall, strong man. Yeah.
And very observant. I feel like if something was happening, he would just kind of sit and observe, but strong.
Right. So I said, even though the message wasn't meant for me personally, I was used as the tool to get it to the person that needed it. And that's probably why he was so strong and persistent with you, because he knew that she and her family were going through some really rough stuff and needed that comforting hug, that ghostly hug, spiritual hug, whatever you want to call it, the hug from the other side. I think it really helped her emotionally. So I was glad that I called.
About that, but thanks, Spirit, for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Richie, do me a favor and tell the public how they can follow you to find out more about your upcoming work and your events. And what about your YouTube channel? How does one find it to tune in? Give us all that information, because I'm sure people would love to.
You can find me on YouTube. You can type in the New Jersey Paranormal Project on YouTube. You can watch all of our shows on there. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. And I'm even doing TikTok videos now.
Are you?
I'm trying to work all these different things and just put our content out there. Message us if you have even just a simple question about how something works or how you too can investigate. There's a website where you can buy gear. There's sites that we use that we recommend. And then we could also get you in contact with the right professional too. We work with every group out there. We really, like I say, we have that revolving door. We love to team up with other groups. So if there's ever another team out there that's looking to team up and they need more members, or call us.
If we can't do what is needed, we can refer you to somebody that can. Yeah. And you generally work in the Passaic area, Morristown, that kind of?
Yeah, we're out of Morris County, but we'll travel. You have spirits, we'll travel. I'm looking forward to a trip to Gettysburg soon. And,
I was just talking to my niece about that. And
then in October, we booked the Shanley, which is upstate, right by the Catskills.
Yeah.
So we're going to spend a night there at the Shanley.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so that's
exciting. You'll have to tell me all about that.
Oh yeah, and it's a great place. They have special packages. This will be a little plug for the Shanley, but they have special packages where you pay a flat fee and you could bring your group in and you get the entire night there. So it's really worth it, especially for authors and people that are writing about the paranormal. You get a nice quiet room that's guaranteed to be haunted. Maybe.
There you go. Can't beat that. And I'm sure it'll end up in your book.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, thanks so much, Rich, for talking to me today and for sharing your stories and your background.
I show you before Eleanor.
Yeah.
The one card that I pulled up before we started this interview. Okay, it's the throat chakra card. So when right before we started this, I say, let me have a card for Eleanor, right?
And what is the card?
The throat chakra.
Throat?
Now, the throat chakra card is, of course, located in the throat area. Communication, sound, creativity, and the ability for clairaudience and inner hearing. It's a creative card, and we're both writers. We're both creators of content. So I thought that was pretty cool. Out of a deck of 52 cards, that you would get that card out of the deck. So
that must mean that we're being creative enough lately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We just got to keep doing this.
That's right. Well, you know that I'm in kindergarten during the school year. So the summers, I have a lot more time to devote to the writing and the learning and the reading. So when school was ending this year, I said to myself, I'm going to teach myself how to do PowerPoint so that when I do presentations at various venues, it's not going to just be me standing up there talking. I want to be able to have an actual presentation with pictures. So I did that and I was like, okay, that's one thing down. Then you and I spoke about the videos, which is going to be the next thing I work on, because focusing on the podcast right now. That's what I'm focusing on, because I've got the Paranormal UK who has picked it up, and phenomenal. I want to get the ball rolling. So I've really learned a lot from picking people's brains. First, it was the YouTube tutorials, which can be helpful. Sometimes sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I don't understand. Who am I going to ask a question to? It's so much better when you know somebody, like if I call you to pick your brain. And so
that's what we're here for,
helping each other out to grow and to learn. And I've actually had so much fun doing this podcast, learning how to do the actual recordings, how to do the editing, and just the meeting and talking to people has been just amazing. I feel like I've got this talk show that I listen to every single day, and it's about a topic that I love, and you can't get any better than that, right?
No, and you're doing what you love. You're putting great material out there for people to learn. So, thank you for doing this, providing this kind of content for listeners that have this interest. You can't get enough of it. And people that are watching this, just keep binging different podcasts, keep reading. I have a book problem. Books from Amazon arrive at my house every other day where I'm just consuming past lives, stuff from Brian Weiss, and, books on the chakra, and never stop learning, because you can apply all this stuff to what you're doing. So,
yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with the world. I really do appreciate that. And I'm going to definitely have you back again. So, because there's endless stuff to talk about. We always find stuff to talk about.
We have to investigate again.
That's right.
Let's do something soon.
Okay, definitely.
Thanks, Eleanor.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
All right. You take care.
Thank you.
And to you listeners out there, COVID has left us in a world of Zoom meetings. We've needed to look to the positive side of things and look outside the box. I surely know it hasn't been easy, but take this opportunity to take up a class online that you might never have done so before. You'd be surprised how rewarding it can be. Take Richie, for example. He took this class online and it has moved his career to another level. It can be rewarding. It can be the light at the end of the tunnel with all this madness and isolation going on.
And thank you, paranormal enthusiasts, for tuning in today. I hope you'll come back again. Remember to tap into your own gifts. Everyone has them. And in the meantime, make sure you're creeping it real.